1 year after Hollywood lost beloved actor Malcolm-Jamal Warner, a heartbreaking family story has taken an unexpected turn. Just when many believe his loved ones were focused on honoring his legacy, new court filings have revealed a legal battle involving his widow, his mother, and more than $1.2 million. The headlines are dramatic, but the real story is far more complicated. According to newly filed lawsuits, Malcolm-Jamal Warner's widow, Tenisha Warner, is seeking more than $1.2 million from the Warner Family Trust, which is overseen by Malcolm's mother, Pamela Warner. Fans immediately began asking questions. Why would a family end up in court just 1 year after such a devastating loss? And what does a prenuptial agreement have to do with this emotional dispute? But that's not the whole story. The lawsuit isn't centered on a family argument alone. Instead, it involves claims that certain financial obligations outlined in Malcolm and Tenisha's 2022 premarital agreement, including a reported $1 million life insurance policy and other financial commitments, were never fulfilled before his unexpected passing. These are allegations made in the lawsuit, and the court has not ruled on them. What happened next surprised everyone, because this case isn't simply about money. It's about grief, legal obligations, and the difficult questions that can arise after an unexpected tragedy. Before we examine the court filings and the arguments from both sides, let's first understand how this deeply personal family dispute found its way into the public spotlight. But before this legal dispute made national headlines, it's important to understand what the lawsuit is actually about, and just as importantly, what it is not about. Despite some sensational headlines circulating online, the case does not accuse Malcolm-Jamal Warner of wrongdoing. Instead, it focuses on whether certain financial obligations described in the premarital agreement were fulfilled after his passing, and who, if anyone, is now responsible for them. According to court documents reported by People, Malcolm-Jamal Warner and his wife, Tenisha Warner, signed a premarital agreement in 2022 before getting married. As described in the lawsuit, the agreement allegedly required Malcolm to maintain a $1 million life insurance policy naming Tenisha as the beneficiary, along with other financial provisions intended to protect her in the event of his death. These details come from the allegations in the complaint and have not yet been decided by the court. Tenisha now claims that those obligations were not satisfied, leaving her with no choice but to pursue legal action against the Warner Family Trust, which is reportedly administered by Malcolm's mother, Pamela Warner. In public statements included in the reporting, Tenisha has emphasized that filing the lawsuit was not something she wanted to do, but something she believes became necessary in order to enforce what she says was agreed to in the prenup. That immediately shifted public attention. Instead of focusing solely on the emotional loss of a beloved television star, the conversation turned toward complicated legal questions involving estate planning, trust administration, and premarital agreements. Fans who had followed Malcolm's career for decades suddenly found themselves trying to understand how such a private family matter had become a public courtroom dispute. But that's only one side of the story. As the legal filings continued, it became clear that this case involved competing legal positions, complicated financial documents, and questions that only a court can ultimately answer. And those details make the story even more complex than the headlines first suggested. As more details emerged, legal experts and entertainment observers pointed out that disputes involving trusts and premarital agreements are often far more complicated than they appear in headlines. A lawsuit represents one party's claims. It does not establish that those claims are true. In this case, the court will ultimately determine how the premarital agreement should be interpreted and whether any obligations remain enforceable against the trust. According to reporting, Tenisha Warner is seeking more than $1.2 million, which she says reflects obligations outlined in the agreement, as well as related financial commitments. Her position is that the agreement should be honored according to its terms. The lawsuit argues that she is entitled to those benefits despite Malcolm-Jamal Warner's passing. These remain allegations made in the legal filings, and the court has not yet ruled on their merits. The involvement of Malcolm's mother, Pamela Warner, has also drawn significant public attention because of her reported role in administering the Warner Family Trust. It's important to note that being named in a lawsuit does not mean someone has been found liable or acted improperly. At this stage, the court process is designed to evaluate the legal arguments presented by all parties before reaching any conclusions. For fans, The situation is especially emotional because Malcolm-Jamal Warner spent decades building a reputation as one of television's most respected actors. Many people remember him for his work on The Cosby Show and the positive impact he had throughout his career. Seeing his family involved in a legal dispute after his passing has been difficult for those who admired both his work and his commitment to keep his private life largely out of the spotlight. As the case moves forward, more court filings and legal responses may provide additional clarity. Until then, many of the questions surrounding the dispute remain unanswered. What ultimately happens will depend on the evidence, the language of the agreements involved, and the court's interpretation of the law, not on speculation or social media discussion. For now, one thing is certain. This is a deeply personal legal matter unfolding in public, and many fans will be watching closely to see how the court resolves the final chapter of Malcolm-Jamal Warner's estate. As the legal process continues, many supporters are hoping the dispute can eventually be resolved in a way that respects both Malcolm-Jamal Warner's legacy and the people he cared about most. Estate and trust cases often take time, especially when they involve multiple legal documents and differing interpretations of contractual obligations. Until the court reviews all the evidence and arguments, the final outcome remains uncertain. This case also serves as a reminder of why estate planning and premarital agreements can become so significant after an unexpected loss. Documents that may have seemed straightforward when they were signed can later become the subject of legal interpretation, particularly when trusts, insurance policies, and contractual obligations intersect. Those issues are ultimately resolved in court, where judges examine the language of the agreements and the applicable law rather than public opinion. Throughout his career, Malcolm-Jamal Warner was known far more for his work as an actor, director, musician, and storyteller than for personal controversy. For many fans, that's how they hope he will continue to be remembered. While the current legal dispute has generated headlines, it represents a chapter unfolding after his passing rather than a legacy he spent decades building. The court's decisions in the months ahead may provide answers to the legal questions now being debated. Until then, much of what has been reported reflects the claims and positions of the parties involved, not final judicial findings. As with any ongoing legal matter, the fact will continue to develop through the court process. We'll continue following this story as verified information becomes available. If there are significant new filings or court rulings, they'll likely shape the next chapter of this closely watched case. Until then, the focus remains on the legal process and on remembering the lasting impact Malcolm-Jamal Warner made on television and in the lives of his fans.